think about the comics we've lost recently. Louis Anderson, Norm Macdonald, Bob Saget, and now Gilbert Gottfried. All in like a kind of a whirlwind. Like I really feel for a lot of these comedians, who are friends with these, because these are high profile guys that a lot of people knew. But Gilbert Gottfried, legendary blue comedian, I guess you could say. That was kind of his style. He passed away yesterday after a long illness at the age of 67. It's really sad news, to say the very least. He was a guy that was in a ton of different things. It's funny because if you look at his career, he was in Aladdin. He was the voice of the Parrot Lago in Aladdin. And he was Digit in Cyber Chase, which is how I think a lot of us 90s kids know him, or at least recognize him. He was the Aflac Duck. But, he got first things first, he got typecast as a bird because of his voice, which I think is hilarious. But he also, though, he was a filthy comic. He was absurd. He went on constant tangents during his jokes. He was known for that exaggerated, deliberately annoying cadence, his voice that he would always amplify. But he was also just known for a lot of his just a variety of filmography. He was in the Lemony Snicket movie. He was in Problem Child. I think he was in all 3 Problem Child movies. He was in a lot of different things. I think his first big break had to be Beverly Hills Cop 2. I think that was kind of where a lot of people discovered him and stuff. But before I throw it over to Dom, I just want to say too, and I'm going to go into this more in my review. I just watched 15, 20 minutes ago. I just finished watching the documentary Gilbert. I was telling you boys about it in the green room. And it's free to watch, excitingly speaking. It's free to watch on Canopy. That's the library streaming app. It's free to watch on Canopy. It's free to watch on Pluto TV. It's free to watch on, I think, Tubi. I know it's on Peacock. I think it's on Tubi. It's on a lot of these different free streaming sites that at most you need an account. I would make time for this. It's only an hour and 38 minutes. It goes by very quickly. You get a rare peek into Gilbert Gottfried, because it wasn't until he passed yesterday that I realized, I don't know a lot about the guy. I had to look up. I didn't know he was married with kids. I did not know that. And this documentary shows you a lot about him. One of my favorite things about him, and you think it's kind of like a one-off thing, he was so cheap. He was so cheap. He would take the bus to travel, like the Greyhound bus to travel to shows. And the first thing he does at every hotel room, one of his people say, he says the first thing Gilbert does at all these hotels is he goes to the front desk and he asks for toothpaste, a toothbrush, a comb, and if he's lucky, deodorant. And then the next scene in the documentary is his wife pulling out, underneath the bed, these bins. I kid you not, 4 huge moving-sized bins full of hotel toiletries. This guy's a freaking gem. And then there's another bit in it, and that's the last thing I'll say. There's another bit where he talks about he's showing he's packing his bags and stuff, and he brings a crate of DVDs. This is 2016, mind you, too. He brings a crate of DVDs from his stand-up specials, and he goes, this is my merch. He goes, and he says it so awkwardly. He goes, all comedians are supposed to have merch. So this is my merch. And then it cuts to Jeff Ross, and Jeff Ross goes, who the hell in this day and age brings DVDs as merch to a stand-up special? Not to mention nobody owns a goddamn DVD player anymore. And you just learn so much about Gilbert, and you see his warmth. They interview his sisters. His sisters are a big part of this movie. His mother, his late father are a huge part of this. His wife, who I couldn't point out in a lineup before watching this documentary, is so sweet. He leaves behind a lot of good stuff, and I think that this is sad to say, but I think people have done a lot of Googling and YouTubing to see how much he's really done over his multiple decade-long career. So it's a big loss in the comedy world. Dom, what say you about Gilbert Gottfried?
Gilbert Gottfried was the kind of person that you mention him to someone, you mention that name to someone, and they'll give you a different answer. You know, every single person will give you a different answer each time. Oh yeah, he's the guy. He's Iago the parrot from Aladdin. That's probably going to be the most common one. That's that. It goes to show actually how much in the mainstream he wasn't, because when he passed away, it's like Aladdin star Gilbert Gottfried passes away. It's like, God damn, really? They had to go that far back for like his most mainstream thing. But for other people, it might be that one College Humor sketch where he reads 50 Shades of Grey a little bit. You might remember him, like Steve mentioned, from various animated things. Apparently, he was in Lego Batman or Lego DC Supervillains in those video games as well. So if you're younger, you might be more familiar with that. Apparently, he's listed as being in Kingdom Hearts. I don't know if that's just archival footage or if they actually brought Gilbert Gottfried into the Square Enix studios to voice new lore, new lines as Iago the Parrot, which would be totally hype. But for the people in the comedy world, of which I'm not, but I'm reading about, he was absolutely a legend. There's the cliche, you know, the comedian's comedian, but it's very much true. He was a staple, or not, maybe not a staple, but a beloved guest of the Howard Stern show for over 20 years. There's a very popular clip on YouTube where it's him not in his famous voice. So yeah, however you know Gilbert Gottfried, it's likely going to be a little bit different, or a lot of different from, depending on who you are or where you just really heard it for the first time. I think I every now and then I like to subscribe to the notion that there are only a few moments in life that define you, that truly define you. And for Gilbert Gottfried, at least in the mainstream, it absolutely was his 9/11 joke during the roast of Hugh Hefner, the Friars Club, not the Comedy Central roast. This is the Friars Club. If you don't know what the Friars Club roast is, look it up on Wikipedia and then spend hours on a rabbit hole and on YouTube, because those are the original roasts going all the way back to the 50s. Maybe not original, but it's one of the longest. It's a tradition in the entertainment world. It's old Hollywood shit, man. I think Dean Martin was getting roasted at one point. But anyway, during the roast of Hugh Hefner, actually, you know what? He made a joke about 9/11 literally 2.5 weeks after actual 9/11. Like, they were still pulling out fresh bones out of the pile. Like the FDNY was still pulling out their brothers out of the pile when he made that joke. And when you watch that joke, I don't think there was a YouTube clip that showed it back to back, but there's one clip where he says the joke and then you hear the audience very audibly go, whoa, no, ooh, too soon, whoa, no. And then I think it's in another clip or various other clips to kind of save himself from that, or he just goes for broke. The balls on this guy, Gilbert Gottfried, my God. He launches into a 10-minute version of his rendition of the Aristocrats joke, where if you don't know the Aristocrats joke, Joe, go ahead and play it. Get the clip, right? Go ahead and play the Aristocrats. We're going to show it here live on Sleepless. No, I'm kidding. Don't play it. Do not play it.
I was like,
I was going to say, I was not briefed by this, but I wholeheartedly support it.
I'm like, yeah, sure, man, sure.
And again, just proving the fact how private he was. And like I said, watching this documentary today really showed me how private of a guy he was. He passed away from ventricular tachycardia, and it was complicated by type 2 myotonic dystrophy. And I couldn't tell you much about either of those two things, but I do know tachycardia is generally like a fast heart rate, like not a regular, but quick. Like it's a quick heart rate. And that's what happens when you grow up being raised by a nurse. You learn a lot of like very strange medical terms that are repeated over the years. But rest in peace to Gilbert Gottfried. Like I said, I highly encourage you to watch that documentary. I'll be reviewing it tonight after the show on my website, stevepulaski.com.